September 14th, 2014, from Paul Brown Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio. It was the Atlanta Falcons at the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals won the toss but elected to defer, and the Falcons took over. They punted on their first drive after reaching near midfield, and Cincinnati would take over on their own 18. 13 plays later, Mike Nugent hit a 31-yard field goal to put the Bengals up 3-0. So now the Falcons took over with about 5 minutes left in the first quarter. 9 plays later, Bryant scored with a 46-yard field goal to tie this game up at 3-3. So now Cincinnati had the ball as they brought the first quarter to a close, and they began the second quarter. They would end up going for a 38-yard field goal, but it was no good as Mike Nugent missed for the first time this season. So it remained 3-3 as the Falcons took over. They would go 3 and out as they punted the ball, and they gave it right back to the Bengals. And they would go for another field goal, and Mike Nugent missed his second field goal of the game, this time from 49 yards. So we remained at 3-3. And the Falcons got the ball back, but they would punt soon thereafter. And now the Bengals had the ball with about 7.5 minutes left before halftime. 10 plays later, and 91 yards, in a little over 5 minutes, Giovanni Bernard scored on a touchdown run, 4 yards for the end zone, as the Bengals went up 10-3. So they now led by a touchdown. The Falcons got the ball with about 2 minutes left before halftime, but they wouldn't get anywhere as they would end up punting the ball. And now the Bengals had it with a little under a minute, and they would set up with 1 second left before the halftime, with Mike Nugent going for a 55-yard field goal, and Mike Nugent missed his third field goal of the first half of this game, this time from 55 yards. And so the score at halftime remained 10-3, with the Bengals up by a touchdown going into halftime. And to lead off the third quarter, the Bengals had the ball, but they went 3 and out, so they would punt to the Falcons, who also went 3 and out, and punted it right back to the Bengals. So now the Bengals had the ball in their own 20, but then it was 3rd and 6, just 2 plays later, from the 24, and Andy Dalton passed to Sanu for a 76-yard touchdown pass to put the Bengals ahead 17-3 as they extended their lead, as they were now up by 2 touchdowns and 14 points. So now the Falcons had the ball on their own 29, and on first down, Bryant dropped back to pass, and he was intercepted by Hall, and this gave the Bengals back the ball on the Atlanta 43 as they were already really close to field goal range, but they weren't going to settle for another missed field goal. 8 plays later, it was a touchdown, a 1-yard run by Hill to make it 24-3, as the Bengals were now up by 3 touchdowns. The Falcons then took over, and they started marching down the field into Cincinnati territory all the way to the 21. But then, on first down, Bryant dropped back to pass, and he was intercepted once again, this time by Leoka. And now the Bengals took over on their own 16 with about a minute and a half left before the end of the quarter, as they brought the third to a close and opened up the fourth quarter with the ball. Soon thereafter, though, they would punt back to the Falcons after having that interception. So now the Falcons had the ball after the punt from the Bengals, and they were going to try not to turn the ball over this time, and they wouldn't, as Bryant led the Falcons down the field in 10 plays and 77 yards in about 4 minutes, and he capped off the drive with a 14-yard touchdown pass to Julio Jones to make this score 24-10, as they were now within 2 touchdowns, but with only 8.5 minutes left in this game, time was running short. But the Bengals helped out the Falcons a little bit right here as they went 3 and out, gave Atlanta the ball back with about 6 minutes left, and they would have to score quick, but that would not happen as the Bengals defense came up clutch and forced them to punt as they were backed up against their own end zone for this very short drive that lasted less than 2 minutes as the Bengals took back over with 4.5 minutes left, ran the clock down for about 2 minutes, and then they punted the ball back, gave it to the Falcons, but with only 2 minutes left in the game and 2 touchdowns needed, they really were in a position where they had to score extremely quick and get an onside kick, but that didn't happen. because 10 plays later, Matt Ryan threw his third interception of the game, the second one by Ilka, and this time it was only 30 seconds left on the clock, and all that was left to do was for Andy Dalton to take the knee as the Bengals beat the Falcons in Cincinnati 24-10. And in this game, Andy Dalton was 15 for 23 with 252 passing yards and 1 touchdown. Matt Ryan was 24 for 44 with 231 passing yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. The game's leading rusher was Giovanni Bernard with 27 carries for 90 yards and a touchdown. And the game's leading receiver was Julio Jones, who had 88 yards off 7 receptions, as well as a touchdown. Sanu also had a touchdown and 84 yards off 3 receptions for the Bengals. But the big difference here was those turnovers, especially late in the game, and they more than well made up for those 3 missed field goals, as they had those 3 interceptions. Hall and Ilka come up huge. Ilka with 2. And I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. If you know how to say it right, if I am saying it wrong, correct me in the comments. I will appreciate that. But as for this game, the Bengals come up huge, as they are apt to do in Cincinnati. As last year in the regular season, they were undefeated, and they win this one right here, 24-10 over the Falcons.